Hello, hello again.
It's so good to see you.
Good to be seen and not viewed.
Yeah, I want you to start out by introducing yourself and telling me just a little bit about your participation in the Black Panther Party and where you are now. What
Okay,
sort of things you might be doing now?
okay. I am Norma Stoker-Mtume currently. When I was in the party, I was Norma or more. And I'm a Southern California girl. I grew up between San Diego and Los Angeles. Um, and after I graduated high school, I started Cal State LA. And I was going to study to be a teacher. I wanted to teach math and physical education because those are my two favorite subjects. So I start off fine, and then I met my first husband on campus who was active in the Black Student Alliance, Black Student Union, and he was dabbling with the Black Power movement to see where he might land, I believe, because he was checking out the Nation of Islam, and then he started investigating what was happening with the Black Panther Party, and so he got involved. And I we had a son then, and I kept going to school and working as a long distance operator because that was my trajectory, I thought. Um, but then in 1969, when the police started raiding all of our offices and killing a lot of our members, he was in one of the offices here in Los Angeles, and when he came out, they beat him up pretty badly, and then he went to jail, and that got my attention. So I started coming around the party to find out what was going on, and then they found out that I could type, so that I was typing for the officer of the day. And the really funny thing though is that they were opening up a free medical clinic here in Los Angeles, the Al Prentice Bunchy Carter Free Medical Clinic. And because I was studying physical education, I had had a class in anatomy and physiology and kinesiology, so I knew more about the body and health than anybody else did at 19, almost 20. So they put me in charge of
19.
the free clinic here in Los Angeles.
Okay, 19. I
Yes,
listened to, I want to say that I listened to a couple of interviews that are on YouTube, and I'm amazed. I had no idea how involved you were, but also that the party was national.
yes.
Because so I was hoping that I could call you my big sister, but I was born a year ahead of you, so you're my little sister. I'm so proud of that. But anyway, I joined the Black Students Union in 68,
Uh-huh.
67, maybe
Yeah.
67, because I graduated in 66. And that next year, I went to junior college and got pretty involved because there were no Black instructors. And I just had that one thing that I thought I was accomplishing. We did some sit-ins and protest, and we ended up getting one Black instructor. And then we started communicating back and forth with the Black Panther Party that was in Northern California. But I
Uh-huh.
had no idea how big it was. I thought what I
Yeah.
did was so tiny, but what you've done, Norma, is so massive.
Mhm. Well, thank you for your kind words. But back then, we were just doing
Just did it,
what we
huh?
thought we could do. Yes, and like I was given the assignment to be the coordinator of the clinic. I didn't know anything about being a clinic administrator,
Mhm.
but I had good mentors. I had a wonderful RN from who was teaching at UCLA, Marie Branch. She later became a chiropractor. So Dr. Branch taught me, a lot about the administration in the clinic, and she was one of the key persons to help us recruit nurses and doctors and lab techs and folks on the medical side who came to work for free, and they
Absolutely.
worked in the clinic. And she was quite a mentor for me. Even taught me how to eat yogurt. I never had yogurt
Oh.
before. I was in
And
South
now you
Central. We didn't
love
eat yogurt.
now you love Greek yogurt. It's
Oh,
a
I
good
love it.
thing.
Love it. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to ask you, I I didn't think of myself as being a resistor or a point of resistance. And I wanted to ask you how you felt about that then and now, because like you just said, we just we just did what we thought was the right thing to do. We
Hmm.
didn't consider it an issue of this strong resistance. We just felt like what we were seeing was wrong and we wanted to do something different about that. But that's how I feel. I was wondering how you felt about that word resistance.
Pretty much the same. I was never really big into politics, and then after I got involved with the party, I stayed in Los Angeles for 2 years, and then there was the call of all over the country to bring members in to help run the political campaigns that Bobby and Elaine were running
Right,
for city
right.
office and mayor. Um, and I don't know. I guess most of the time I was so busy working because I not only learned how to be the health officer, I was also the minister of finance here in Oakland after the one who was working at the time left because I had helped her in Los Angeles with the finances. And when we moved up here, I was put in the clinic and I ran the clinic here, but then they asked me, could I do the finance piece? So it's like I've always been, I call myself back office. I've always been the one that's taking care of the clinics and the members' health care situations, the babies. We had pediatric clinics. Um, and so that was my focus. I didn't really think a
Yeah,
lot about it until later, and people start asking me about it, and they're like amazed at how much we did, especially at such a young age. But it was a time. It was the time.
it was the time.
The
Really.
'60s were. I mean, the '60s and the early '70s were just the times when young people were stepping out and doing things. We had older people in the party who were, mentoring us. A lot of them had been in the military. A lot of them had studied uh, about other movements in other countries for folks who were trying to get their freedom. And so we learned from them, and I learned from just reading books. I had the physician's desk reference and the Merck manual, and I
Oh
just
my.
read them like I was a medical student or something. And so I knew what medications people needed for this, or how to do this lab test, and
I just thought what
just
was, I'm sorry, I
no,
thought
no,
what
no,
was so interesting was the fact that it seemed like everything that you needed for basic operations came from around you, lab supplies, people
hmm
who were volunteering as doctors and interns and nursing, and
exactly,
it was
exactly.
just an amazing time.
Yeah, and it wasn't until later on, probably in '76, that we got our first grant from anybody. We actually got
Mhm.
a enforcement a law enforcement act grant to do youth services at the community center where the Oakland Community School was located.
Okay.
So it was all donations and volunteer time, and it worked itself out, and a number of at least I think two of those clinics, because there was a call out to start clinics in all of the chapters. So I felt I had the opportunity to work in LA and in the headquarters. So I
Yeah,
had probably a lot more experience than other people in doing that work. But some of them have gone on to become a federally qualified health center, which gives you,
absolutely.
yeah, that
It's
one in
amazing.
Seattle for sure has kept going all these years.
I
Yeah.
have another question.
Hmm.
Um, I considered some of the work that I did was an act of worship because if you look at scripture,
Hmm.
I don't know where you are in your faith, but if I look at scripture, when it talks about taking care of those who are the least of these, the children, the women,
Hmm.
the orphan, those were the things that pulled me into action. So if I
Mhm.
talk about resistance, that would be the impetus for me to move forward in so many of the things that I did back then. What about you?
Well, I was a Christian when I came into the party. I grew up. I, would, I accepted the Lord when I was 9 and was baptized at Christian Life Missionary Baptist Church here in
Oh,
Los Angeles.
oh wow.
Going to church with my grandma every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got into the party, that was just not something, that was the man's way of keeping us down and all that. But I know that that was in me, and just always trying to help other people. And my dad told me that you remind me of mama. I said, why is that? They were farmers, and she said that she would have us to go hitch up the old blind mule to the buggy, and we'd load up with all kinds of produce and food, and they slaughtered hogs and whatnot. We'd load up with food and we'd take it around to the people in the neighborhood who didn't have
No,
anything. They
so
had a lot of kids in it. She
it
said,
was
"You
just
remind me
in
of
you.
Mama." Yeah, and I
Mm,
that's just me, and so that was my perspective. I think in the party that I was doing things that to help. But since I've been out of the party, I know that's what I was supposed to do, and I'll come back to the Lord. I'm back in the church, and um, I know that the work I'm doing is the Lord's work. And I've
absolutely.
retired twice, and I'm still working. I said I'm fake retired.
Yeah. Is it say work until he comes? So
Yeah, I still have. I'm 74. I got
excuse me.
good strength, but most of the marbles in my head is still rolling around in the right direction, so I can still do some things. And so I
Yeah.
continue to work in the health field. I continue to work with nonprofits, and all of this work. I got my early training in the party, doing community engagement work, doing health services work, doing financial management, doing nonprofit management, because we had two nonprofits in the party up north.
Mhm.
And so it was my springboard to the rest of my
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And listening to the other interview, I didn't realize how so many things you talked about that cyclical process of you're just going day to day, project to project, and how all
Mhm.
those things sort of linked and connected to one another. Being interested in sickle cell and AIDS and
Mhm.
mental health services and feeding children and the educational component. It's just, uh, I was breathless when I finished
Yeah.
listening to
And
your.
and then growing up poor, growing up in a community where there were so many deficits, you just didn't have. People were just barely making it.
Mhm.
And my husband and I, we laughed. We said, "Gee whiz, we're doing okay here. We're doing better than okay. I know we're doing better than a whole lot of people we know."
Exactly.
I said, "But we never want to lose it. But I think we know how to live poor. And if we had to do it again, we wouldn't want to. But there's so many people that they haven't had that experience, even our children, because we try to make a better life for them.
Right.
And, for them to be able to just step out and do things now like we did, we didn't have a whole lot to lose
Now,
within our lives,
are
which,
you still connected with anybody that's, I should say, still alive? Because there was so much violence
yeah, I am. And besides the
imposed on
violence,
the party.
yeah, in 50 years, we've aged.
Hmm.
We've
Yeah.
aged, and yes, I am still in touch with Elaine Brown, who was chairperson of the party when we left,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
Erica, and several of the men and women who were
Yeah.
in the party, and we talk periodically. And I was speaking with Erica a couple of weeks ago. Every year at UCLA, they have a ceremony to commemorate um, her husband, John Huckins, and Bunchy Carter being killed at UCLA. And
Hmm.
so we have a ceremony and we talk with the students about it, and the kind of work that we did, and how it's difficult going through life with that sometimes it's baggage, because things that you try to do, folks don't want to open their door to you because they go and find out about you, and they don't want to have anything to do with you. So you keep pressing on, you keep pressing through some traumas that happened in the past, but they're not necessarily all gone. And but by the grace of God, he's brought me on to be able to continue to do the work that I do.
I think there needs to be another documentary about the back office and all of the women's work that
Hmm.
was behind the party, because the face of the party was the men, but some of the
Yeah.
grind and the hard work were the women in the office. I also was not finance, but the
Hmm.
flyers and getting
Oh
information.
yeah, yeah, the administrative
All
piece of
that
it.
was women in the
Mhm.
back office.
And that's partially true, but we didn't segregate who did what. We had men
No.
that took care of the babies. We had men
Yeah.
running the nursery. We
Hmm.
had men who were in the kitchen cooking with the women.
Okay. Okay.
The teachers were men and women. The children stayed in dormitories, and it was men and women that took care of them in the evening after school.
Okay.
Um, and so, but the face was, I mean, this is America. This is the U.S. This is the world. And what did James Brown say? It's a man's world.
It's man's world.
But yeah,
But it wouldn't be nothing
yeah, that did. But
without
yeah,
a woman or a girl.
yeah, and just that paperwork and all of that, and just like
Yeah,
I said, knowing how to type. For the most part, men
exactly.
they didn't take that in school. They took Photoshop and other things
That's
back in the
right.
days. That
Yeah.
so we had those skills, and people stepped up to the plate or were assigned according I don't remember who used to say, from each according to his ability to each according to his need. And that's kind of how we operated.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think the last question, because they're going to try to narrow this down to about 3 to 5 minutes, and I don't.
Yeah, they'll cut a lot. I
But
know.
anyway, um, how do you rest in the work that you've done, and how do you place that into your life now as an issue of rest? Because you're still doing things. There's
Yes.
what's called active rest, and I think you epitomize.
I'm not actively or inactively resting as much as I need to. And I know
Yeah.
that. And I made a commitment to myself that I was going to do better this year. And here we are already in the middle of February. And the last 2 days have been, but I'm getting ready to leave the country next week too. So I'm trying to get a lot of things done. But my
Okay.
husband, I had like 5 back-to-backs, and my husband's sticking his head in the door, like,
There you go.
pretty
Thank
soon
you
he's
for,
gonna.
for allowing time with me. I have to tell you something funny that happened in the 70s. Was when I got married, and
Hmm.
my brother-in-law was on the Oakland Police Department. And he told my husband that I was someone that he should not marry because I was connected with the Black Panther Party. Under no circumstances should I get hooked up with somebody that's been in that situation. And all of these years have passed by. And if I had not met Lovey, I would not have known that that other Norma was
What's
you.
her daughter? It's a small world. It
I
really
know.
is.
I know.
But I feel honored. Thank you very much for wanting to hear something.
Oh, yeah.